Hi everyone, I'm Karin Slaughter, and I'm here with my fellow thriller authors and friends, Lisa Unger, who has a new book out, and Sara Blaedel, who also has a book out, but it's not new. And we're here, and I have a paperback book out, but we're here to talk about how awesome we are and to answer your questions. And also I want to say before we start that we're going to be live streaming later on from the back of a car. It's not what you're thinking. We're going to be doing drop-in signings at Barnes & Noble's, and we're going to sign books, and we're going to film in there as well until security comes. And so I hope you guys check back with us. But first I want to say hello to my buddy Lisa Unger.
Hi, how are you? I'm Lisa Unger, and I am here to hang out with my two pals, Sara Blaedel and Karin Slaughter. And they are mega best-selling and just awesome in every conceivable way.
I think it's true.
I think it is true. I mean, why else would we be here if you were not completely awesome? This is actually my on-pub week. I have a new book out, The Red Hunter. It went on sale Tuesday, and is my 15th novel of psychological suspense.
That's great. And Sara?
Yeah, my name is Sara Blaedel. I'm actually from Denmark, but I'm invited here by my friends and colleagues. And first of all, I wanted to say congratulations with The Red Hunter.
Thank you.
Just published. And my latest book in the US is The Lost Woman series. Yes, we like. I'm here promoting The Lost Woman. No, but you're right, it's not new, but it's still a little, the newest at least.
But I just saw the galley. I saw the galley cover for your upcoming is it February?
February
That was
next
a very
year.
exciting cover.
Yeah,
So
it's a
that's
totally new series.
It is. Yeah, it looked very exciting.
What's it called?
The Undertaker's Daughter.
Yeah.
And it's set here in the US.
Yeah.
And you helped me with a story that I could never ever come up with myself.
Well,
so.
I dated a mortician in high school.
You did not.
Sarah, it's true. And people on my Facebook page know that like the longest parent-teacher conference of my parents' life was when I went to school and I had my lunchbox and it had a picture of Marilyn Monroe after the autopsy taped to it.
Oh my God.
I thought I was making a statement. It's a good thing I'm not in school now because I'd be in like the special class. But my dad was just like, she's weird. That's just what it is. You know, leave her alone.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that we really, really like
That's
you.
right. Yeah. Weird people are the ones who are at the Facebook studio, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, you did have a lot of questions about undertaking, and I knew it because honestly, that's why I dated the guy because he had just such cool stories.
And I thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah. And one thing, because you're Danish, and a lot of people don't know, I found this out when I was in Sweden. We all know the Muppets, the Swedish Chef.
Oh, here we go.
And actually, the Swedish chef is speaking Danish, right? So
Yeah.
it's just.
And Karin always say, oh, you Danish people. Blah, 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 blah. And then I just say, nej, det er overhovedet ikke sådan. Vi taler fuldstændig almindeligt.
Well, we have a question. If you could give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, I mean, now that you are 25, right? Or 26.
Oh yeah, that's
What
good.
would it be? I would say take care of your knees, and also raise your arms over your head at least once a day, because I realized I don't do that, and I'm afraid that I'm just going to get like this.
So raising your arms over your head once a day does what? It like
Well, 'cause
improves
it
helps
your
here
also. Improves
Well, no,
your
'cause
posture.
how many
or-
times do you put your arms over your head?
Well, I
I don't want to lose that ability.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
that's true.
Like twice a day, I'm like.
well, because the
okay.
whole writing thing is kind of like an
Right.
occupational hazard.
Yeah, 'cause you
and
have the C.
can't- Yeah, and if you've lost yourself, sort of. In that creative space, you can never think about your posture.
Right.
So you're
like,
this.
like
So you have
this.
to kind of. I feel like more. It's like just opening through.
Yeah.
There, like yoga.
And yoga's too hard, so just do this.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so what will you tell?
I would say to stay focused on the work. I feel like a lot of I lost some years early because I didn't have like maybe the bravery or the confidence to pursue the only thing I ever wanted to do, which was write. And so I lost some years and kind of let those writing dreams lay fallow a little bit. And, you know, I had like negative voices in my head. You know, my dad was, you know, like your dad was like, oh, she's weird, just get used to it. My dad was like, you're weird, what's wrong with you? Like, when are you going to stop being weird? And I was like, I don't know, probably never. And so I feel like I had some of those negative voices in my head for too long, and it kept me from doing what I wanted to do. So I would say, you know, get focused on the writing and stay focused on it.
Oh, I never knew that.
No, and he's a wonderful man. Sorry, Dad. I know he's used
I
to.
met your
he's
dad.
used to this.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about him all the time
Yeah.
as like my sort of foil or whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, his advice wasn't bad advice. It was just that he was an engineer,
Well,
and
if
he
you
was
hadn't
like,
done that, maybe you wouldn't be the writer you are now.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, because it's good advice. You know, because writing is a job, and you know, we all work very hard. Even though like sort of maybe a popular idea is that we're just sort of like lounging around in our pajamas eating bonbons, but you know, it's work, and you sort of start from the bottom, and you get to work every day, and you work your way up, and eat cheese puffs and. And all that. So it's not bad advice. It's just that for me, it kind of like, you know, because I'm like that good girl and I want to do the right thing and follow the rules sometimes.
Oh.
You know, I just sort of sometimes.
Oh.
So I feel like maybe that would be the advice I would give. Just, you know,
Sounds
get
like
focused on the writing and stay focused on it. Yeah.
Well,
And continue.
And continue. Yeah.
But if you could go back last year to when you were 25,
Yes,
what would
exactly.
you say?
But I think actually the best thing for me would have been if I trust that everything will be all right. I never ever thought that I would become a writer one day. It never came to me as a dream when I was a child. I never thought that that was my direction. But one of the things that could be extremely helpful for me when I was young was that believing myself and think that I was actually good enough.
Yeah.
And try to, as you say, try to stay focused, try to do it as good as you can. I always try really to do things as good as I can. I'm not very good at a lot of things, but I try to be good at just a few things and then keep sticking to that. And it would have been such a huge help for me if I really believed that everything will turn out fine.
Yeah.
It will be fine. You're good enough as you are. And then
And that's good advice.
think that
for
one day
everyone,
you
yeah.
will look back and say, oh, it wasn't that hard.
Right. Why are you so stressed?
Yes.
Too bad you
Yeah.
gotta get older to realize that, though. I mean, that's the part that
I'm
sucks.
so old. So
you
listen to
you
me.
earn it, you earn
I
it.
actually know what I'm talking about.
Well, so we got another question. If you could be one of your bad characters, which one would it be and why?
That's a hard one because I don't really think of any of my characters as bad characters. You
Well,
know,
it's bad.
they're sort of, everyone has like sort of their degrees of badness, and some of them are, you know, sort of truly deranged. And you know, I enjoy hanging out with them just because I'm curious about what makes them tick. You know, that's sort of like my driving you know, motivation for most of my fiction is I just have this insatiable curiosity about what makes us who we are. Is it nature? You know, is it nurture? Is it some, as most scientists believe now, an impossibly complicated helix of both of those things? So I'm always sort of fascinated to hang out with my darker characters and, you know, my more heroic characters because I just want to know why they are who they are.
I find it very fascinating when there are two sides of the bad character. When there's also maybe not a good side, but a positive side, but two sides, more than just one really bad guy. I once tried to describe a rapist, and he was bad. Oh, he was really bad. I don't want to be him. But I couldn't figure out exactly to put him in the right way. So I did too much out of creating a bad guy. And it just turned into being nothing for real. And I needed to see him,
humanize him,
you know,
to understand
And then I
him,
saw a guy in a bar hanging out with a girl, and I said, well, there you are. You are really the one. And he looks really nice, and I could have had a beer with him. But in my books, he turned out to be bad as hell.
Yeah.
And that makes him interesting, I think,
Yeah.
because he was right there. I could have hung out with him, but I didn't.
Well, the thing about bad people, and I think that that's the reason I like both of your writing, is because you do look at both sides. It's not just this is a really bad guy, and it makes the story kind of unbelievable if there's nothing almost redeeming about him.
Right.
Because the fact is, predators have a good side.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they
They're
would never
charming.
find victims.
Yeah.
you
And
know?
that makes them more dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've all met people like that, but I don't know about my bad characters because I don't think they're bad either. I just think they're complicated. What I did realize was that they have a lot more sex than I do.
So you
I
feel
know,
envy?
right? Yeah. So, but that makes them bad.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Deborah Osher Carter asks, "Do you ladies critique each other's work?" Well, I will now.
Well-
I just read Lisa's book, so page 48. No, you know, it's
it's like-
weird because you think when you're an author that it's like the round table at Algonquin and you sit around talking about literature, but mostly our texts are like my feet hurt,
exactly.
or you know,
Pictures of cats,
pictures, yeah,
fishing,
yeah, and stickers, which we love.
I feel like it's more like a mutual admiration society. I mean, I admire you both so much, just not just as writers, of course, as writers, but also as people. And I couldn't imagine, critiquing anything that you did. I mean, you're both such stellar writers,
Right.
It's more like a love. It's more like a love fest and less like. But she probably means like. She probably means, do we give each other our drafts to read and stuff?
No,
but no,
we
I
do
don't
not.
think anybody does that.
No.
No.
That would be awful.
Yeah,
Can you
but in
imagine?
general, it's awful to handle out the book to
Yeah,
someone
it's bad
else.
enough when your editor gets it.
You don't need too much input, actually.
No,
Too much input is a bad thing.
Well, and the thing is, you're fantastic writers, and I wouldn't want your style in my book. Right?
That's another
course.
thing.
Because
Right.
a lot of people will say, is there a book you wish you'd written? And I say no, because I wouldn't enjoy it, because I would have changed it. It wouldn't have been as great.
And we are very different in a way. We have strong characters and all that. I'm a huge fan, so maybe I'm not the right one to ask because I'm such a huge fan. But at the same time, I think that we're different. So we do not try to be each other. We do not try to do what each other do, because that is actually one of the things. It's to stay in your own business, your own way to do it,
Yeah,
and then just enjoy your friends' books.
Okay, Mark Eli Harris asked me, Karin Slaughter, is Will Trent based on someone you knew? He's my favorite character. Well, thank you very much. He's one of my favorite characters too, and he's actually dyslexic, and that was something that I wanted to write about, is someone who had a disability who was also a hero. And whose disability in many ways enhances his life because it makes him a really good detective. It's the reason he pays attention to things so closely, the reason that he is more in tune emotionally to suspects and the people in his life is because of this disability. But I think the core of that is we all have characters we love writing about, but the thing that makes them interesting is we know secrets about them that the reader doesn't know and may never know. I mean, I know that when you write a character, you can't put everything on the page. So,
Right.
I mean, what do you hold back? Tell us now, all of it.
Okay, let's get going. I feel very much like a long time ago I stopped thinking of characters as people that I create and started thinking of them as people that I meet. And even though, of course, I know that's not true, that's how I experience my sort of fictional world. And so I feel like I am slowly getting to know my characters on the page. Every novel begins for me with the character voice, and then it's slowly over time it's like a relationship, like any relationship that you have. You meet somebody, you are interested in that person, you start talking to that person in layers, you start to understand them better. And that for me is part of the process, that I start with my characters usually showing up with even their name already. I don't even feel like I'm part of that process, and then I sort of get to know them on the page, and and oftentimes in the same pace that I'm revealing them to the reader.
And then you can be surprised.
I can be surprised. I can
Yeah.
always be surprised by them, and that and it's the same is true for the way that I write. I write for the same reason that I read, because I want to know what's happening to these people that are living in my head.
I do create a fact sheet, you can say, about a character. So I feel, okay, he or she can look like this, and I can put pictures into it. And I think it's very much a tool for myself. Maybe it's not even, hit the pages in my books, but for me, I make them grow, and I get to learn, I get to know them. And after that, they just take off and be themselves. That is so interesting. I'm fascinated every time it happens.
Yeah.
Well, so Grace asks, I'm on book 3 of Will Trent series and Addicted. Oh, that's a good thing. It's much better than cocaine.
Addictions.
Yeah,
Book
yeah.
addictions, character
Yeah.
addictions, we support that.
So he's one of my favorite characters. What book in the series do you think was the hardest for Trent's character? Gosh, I think Undone. Probably when he meets Sarah, because when I wrote Triptych and Fractured, Will hadn't met Sara yet, and I was really working on him as a guy to make him the sort of person that when Sara met him, that she would really be interested in him, because the guy you meet in Triptych is very different from the guy in Undone. And so that was my plan all along, to bring them together. But, you know, some books are harder than others, like my new one that's out in August, The Good Daughter. You know, some of the characters just came to me really quickly, and one of them I love so much, I did a novella called Last Breath, which you can go to Amazon now, or Barnes & Noble, or wherever you get digital books. But, you know, sometimes you do love a character so much you think there's more to their story, and sometimes that turns into a series, and sometimes it turns into a novella. But, I mean, what about for you guys? Was there a hard book or an easy book?
Well, I mean, the character that, you know, sort of, there was a character that showed up at the end of Fragile. She's a psychic, and her name is Eloise Montgomery. And, you know, she kind of popped up at the end of the book, and I thought, oh, a psychic. That's interesting. You know, even if she's a fraud, it's still interesting. And so she sort of, you know, once the book was done, there were two characters at the end of that book that I just, you know, could not stop thinking about, Jones Cooper and Eloise Montgomery. And so they wound up each, you know, getting their own books. But then I had an opportunity to explore Eloise through it's really a novella in 3 parts, but it was published as 3 short stories. And I explored her character over a period of 30 years, starting before she appeared in Fragile and ending after the last book that she was in. And I really was able to get in deep to her character and understand her even better than I did before. And then when I was writing that, I met her granddaughter, and I started writing about her, Finley Montgomery, and she wound up getting her own book with Ink and Bone. So, you know, it's this kind of this, you know, journey of getting to know these characters and, you know, having them come to life. Yeah.
And I feel that sometimes when you finish the book and actually feel that it's done and over, then I can keep thinking about what if that happened to that character that you actually left behind in the earlier books. And now I just discovered that one of the characters, and she do not have a big part in the book, but now she has started growing, and I think that I need and I have to write her story, because otherwise it will just continue in my head, and then I get it in my head like popping popcorn in my kitchen, doing it on the, what is it called? Yeah, not the micro, yeah, the stove. And then totally it explode at last in the head if I do not write the story.
Right.
So that's the way that characters can keep on saying, hey, I'm not done, you have to write one more. That's very fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and I love popcorn.
Yeah.
Me too.
Kate Kelly asks, what's the best secret about one of your characters that you've never told anyone? Well, mine are all secretly dead. What about you guys?
Same.
Yeah, they're all dead.
I have some really good secrets, amazing
can't
ones,
share 'em,
but
though.
I can't.
Yeah.
I really can't. Because then,
Buy the books.
Because it has to stay. You can't ever talk about something that might come up in the future in your series, because the minute you open your mouth about anything that, for me anyway, that you're working on, it drains all the energy out of that creative, you know, zone. And you can't, so once you start talking about your ideas, if you were to ever talk about what you were going to write next or the secret that you were holding, you know, all the energy would just dissipate from
and
that.
Even my editor, also named Kate, when I'm talking to her, I'll say, I can't tell you that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and she'll say, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Which is weird because she'll forget by the time she reads it anyway. But I just have. If I talk about it, I don't want to do it.
And then most editors don't want to know. I mean, they just want to. They want to be surprised too. They want to, you know, discover along with the reader.
My protagonist, Louise Rick, she had for a long time a very well-kept secret.
You can tell a secret?
I can tell a secret. I'm from Denmark. It's everything. You know, it's a Danish thing.
Yeah.
We do just
That's
come
right.
up with all our secrets.
So different over
I
there.
was keeping her, Louise Rick's secret for 6 books, and I kept it very, very, very well.
Did?
But then I wrote The Forgotten Girls, and
it's
the
out.
darkest secrets from her life came out.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is for Sara, I assume. Many of your books take place in Denmark. How important is the location or setting in your writing?
That is such a good question, because it's very, very, very important for me, because I am dyslexia as Will Trent. So I'm dealing very much with pictures in my head. So I see things. I like to be there when I write. I like to know exactly how it feels when I'm walking down the street. So it's very important for me. But my new series, The Undertaker's Daughter, is actually set in the US, in Racine, Wisconsin. So I have to go there to set the story. I have to be there and have to feel how it is to go into the bakery, buy some crinkle, and be around, because otherwise it does not work for me. I cannot just sit and let it all come up to my head if I don't see things. So setting and locations is very, very important.
All right, we got one more question. We only have 4 more questions, so let's not take an hour to answer them. Lisa.
Oh,
All right.
I'm sorry.
For Lisa
Am I talking
Unger,
too much?
all writers. I wasn't looking at you when I said that. All writers are readers first. That's where most of us fell in love with the story, in the pages of someone else's book. That sounds a little dicey, right? Like risque. I fell in love in the pages of your book. Was there a moment when you realized that you wanted to write as well as read? What was the book that first made you feel that way? What pages did you fall in love with?
Well, I have kind of a weird answer to that. So
Not surprised.
no, of course not. I was like always just a voracious reader all my life. I mean, I think most of us were, but I have to say that I think it was Music for Chameleons, which was a short story collection by Truman Capote, where I first had that moment where I realized that the tremendous power of language to move and to transport, and not just that, but the power of character. So it's a series of short stories, but they're not all fiction. Some of them are just sort of snippets and memories from his life, and there was just something about the way he wrote and the way he kind of had his finger on the pulse of, you know, just what makes us human that really moved me in a way that nothing else had before. And then years later, I read In Cold Blood, which is not a novel, but the first book of its kind. Really, it's really the first true crime book. And even that book was, you know, sort of a searing character portrait of, you know, very dark, disturbed people who did committed a heinous crime, and yet he was able to write about them with such deep compassion and with such breathless beauty that it kind of gave me permission to be who I am as a writer, because I always had this kind of fascination with what's dark, and I always wanted to, you know, look. I'm like the person who's like wants to know what that form in the window is, or, you know, what's under the stairs, and so it gave me permission to be that person.
Sarah, is it a Danish book? Is it Worky Borky?
It's always Erky Burky for me, you know that.
I can't stop thinking about the Swedish chef now.
No. But
Now we're going to chop the turkey.
okay, another question, please.
Another question.
Wait, you're not going to answer that?
It is Worky Borky, isn't it? Yeah.
Wow.
I'll answer the question because it's Flannery O'Connor, and I remember reading her short stories, and I was a little girl in a small southern town with extremely inappropriate behavior and humor. And the fact that she could write this stuff, and she was also a woman in a small southern town, and get away with it, it was just a revelation. It was like permission to let my freak fly.
But I don't think that I ever. But yeah, of course, I didn't think about myself being a writer, but a reader. And the book where I really know I want to stay in this story forever. It was the famous. It was A Mystery for Children. Do you know that? Mysteries for Children? Yeah. And it was 4 children and a dog. And for me, I could be the dog. I didn't care as long as I was along with them. So the love for being in a story and for being dragged into a story and to have a totally other place to be, it was great. It was the beginning.
Well, we've got 3 more questions. So if you could take any one literary character, not your own, and put it in one of your books, who would it be? The Swedish chef, right?
Spider-Man?
Spider-Man?
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, I wanted, so in my book, The Good Daughter, I've always loved Atticus Finch, and I actually liked Go Set the Watchman, because I thought if you combined the Mockingbird, Atticus Finch with the Watchmen, they were like a lot of men of my father's generation I knew growing up, and where you had this idea of them that they were these honorable people, but they also could cross the line to get something done as long as they thought it was the right thing to do.
Right.
And so in The Good Daughter, I thought, well, let me channel that into this one character named Rusty, who's like, he's a lawyer, so you know, like my dad was a used car salesman, so enough said about that. But so you just get this idea that he has this sense of being right about a lot of things, and he'll do whatever it takes in service of being right. And it wouldn't necessarily be something that other people would agree with, but his moral compass is really firmly planted, and it can't be changed, and he'll do anything to keep it that way.
Well, I kind of, when I saw that question up on the thing, I sort of thought, you know, what character would you want to live, like what book would you want to live in? So that's how I kind of read that. And for me, it would be Jane Eyre.
Oh, I was going to say Anne of Green Gables for you.
I can see why you. Yeah. But no, Jane Eyre. I mean, that is a story, and that I read that book. You know, I've read it many, many times, and then of course there's a million movies. You know, and every single one of them is great, and I've seen every single one, and it's just a story that I think is just classic and beautiful, and just, I mean, it is. It's a perfect story,
And it still works.
it still works.
Yeah.
It still works.
What about you?
And, oh, I don't know.
No, I
To be in the-
SpongeBob SquarePants.
So I cannot take that one. To be in the book, yeah. I think that I need to stick to someone who's really, really, really smart on law, because I like law drama and I cannot figure it out. I'm not smart enough, I'm sorry. Had to admit that. So maybe I will take a really, really sharp lawyer and put in, and then give it all the rest I can, and then she or he can handle it. All the law stuff, and I can lean back and think, yes, then you take it. I can just bring them into all the trouble I wanna, and then you can fix it.
And you'll just be the
And
young pretty one.
I know who.
Yeah.
The fixer. I watched Blacklist.
Yeah.
And the character, the female character, come and fix everything. I am so jealous of her. I love her. I want her
I would
in my
totally, because you
character.
those dead bodies just stacked.
Yes.
So
Two more
messy,
questions.
too. My
Veronica
goodness.
Thomas asked, hi from Alabama, War Eagle. Do you all have a favorite from your own books? Like a favorite, well, we've done characters, like a favorite book.
Yeah,
It's always the one I've just finished.
Yeah.
And the one I'm excited about is the one that I'm about to start.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I would say my last one, The Good Daughter, which is not a Will Trent book, but hopefully people will really love it, because it still has sex and violence, and I know you guys like that.
You like that.
Yeah,
you like
yeah.
that too.
What about you?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I sort of when.
Well, it's a fantastic book. I just finished it. The Red Hunter.
Thank you. I feel, you know, I feel very excited about that book, and I feel excited about the one that I just finished, and I'm excited about the one that I'm about to start writing. But you know, for me, I mean, one of my driving motivations in my career is that I feel like every day I can get up and go to work and be a better writer than I was yesterday. And that, you know, that's the only thing that motivates me. I mean, there are tons of other, you know, wonderful things about the work that I do, but that is the one thing that brings me to the keyboard. And so I feel like every book that I have written represents the pinnacle of my ability at that time. Not now, hopefully, but then. And so I feel very strongly that every book, and everyone's very personal and represents a very important piece of me in that time. So I can never pick a favorite, but I always hope that the one that I've just finished is the best work yet.
No, it has to be. I mean, you wouldn't stop if, right?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be I mean, I bring everything to the keyboard. I pour all of myself into that work, and if I wouldn't release anything that I didn't feel was the very best that I could do. Maybe it's not the best, maybe somebody else could do it better, but it's the best that I could do.
Yeah. Well, you just finished. You're almost finished with your
I'm
next one.
almost
Do you
finished,
feel
yes.
that way?
And actually, I had the feeling, to be totally honest, that when I finish a book, I think I can never do it again. I can never come up with a story like this again. Not that I try
Every
to
time
do
it's
the
like the
same.
first
Yeah,
time.
it is.
Yeah,
It is. And it's like, oh, what next? Because this was the story. I had that feeling when I finished, and I just actually almost finished a book yesterday. So
Almost.
and
Maybe tomorrow. Right.
And the new series, The Undertaker's Daughter, that is completely different. It's not a police procedure like the Louis Rick series. But I think, okay, after that, it will be so hard to come up with something else because this whole universe is so fascinating. I'm into it, and I want to be in it, and I know it's a 3-book series, so I don't know. I had the feeling that this time it's it.
Yeah, you're never going to write again.
I'm never going to
So
write
everybody
again.
better get this book right.
But I do. And I look back and I say, okay, you did it again and again and again. I'd probably continue.
No, my editor always does that. And I always, after I finish a book, I go to my doctor. I'm like, oh, something's wrong with me. I'm dying. And she's like, lift your arms over your head. Right? So this is the last question. What was your most moving fictional moment? I guess that's a moment in fiction. Either in reading a novel or writing one. When I killed a character in one of my books, I cried. So that was like the first one, and I've never cried when writing a book again until I wrote The Good Daughter. And actually, I'm not a crier. You guys look really surprised because you know me. And I just sobbed in this one part in The Good Daughter, and actually other people are sobbing too, which makes me, because I'm the youngest of 3 girls, so I always want other people to be as miserable as me. But not as happy. And so it's making me really happy that people are crying too.
And I've heard that people are crying, so I can.
We'll see if you cry.
I probably will.
I would say also that my most moving moment is in The Red Hunter. There have been other moments. In Ink and Bone, there was a moment where I was very, very emotional, even though I knew it was the right course for the story. It was a very, very difficult moment for me in Ink and Bone. But in The Red Hunter, the sort of the central theme of the book is what is the difference between justice and revenge. And there's these 2 women that are sort of on very different paths after trauma. One of them has turned herself into a fighter, and she's sort of looking for revenge on the people that hurt her, and the other one is sort of turned herself into somebody like looking for the light. She's sort of trying to write a new story for herself, and she's renovating a house. And it's a question in our culture, like, what is the difference between justice and revenge? Like, does one wrong require another wrong and another and another? And so that choice and coming to that moment where that question had to be answered, and I don't know if it was actually answered, that was a difficult moment in the book for me. Yeah.
I've tried that before also with killing a person in the book and then just really start crying because it was so wrong, but it couldn't be in any other way. But in my book, The Forgotten Girls, there is a scene where the father for 2 twins who were brought to the mental hospital when they were very small, he thought that they were dead. And when he realized that they are still alive, that moment I was just like, it was so hard, and I was so pathetic because I was the one who told the story, and I was so much with him at that moment. But it was just it was a.
I think you have to. I mean, my goodness, if you're not there with your characters, what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah.
That's the whole reason for doing it.
Sometimes have you experienced that when you have been written a scene, and after that, reading it and say, did I write that? It was like, what?
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, we've ended this on, we're all going to start crying now.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
But I should say that we're all here, we're very happy to be at Facebook, but we all came here to support our friend Alifair Burke, who wrote an exceptional novel called The X.
Brilliant
and
novel.
We're here because the Edgar Awards are tonight, and she's nominated for one. Yay! Go Alifair! And now we're gonna finish this. We thank you so much, and thanks to Sara Blaedel and Lisa Unger, fantastic writers. I'm Karin Slaughter, and we're gonna keep live streaming as we tour around New York. But thank you guys so much for paying attention.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.